and his family for joining us today. Now, the Shrine of Remembrance is held in care by the Shrine trustees on behalf of all Victorians. We recognise and embrace the diversity of our community and acknowledge the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we honour Australian service people. And we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. The Shrine of Remembrance was dedicated in 1934 to commemorate more than 114,000 Victorians who enlisted in the First World War, 89,100 of whom deployed to the war overseas, of which 19,000 were killed. Our purpose now is to honour the service and sacrifice of all Victorians and Australians who have served in war, other conflicts, peacemaking and peacekeeping. We warmly welcome all veterans and members of the Australian Defence Force and the families and friends that love and support them. And to all of you, be you residents or visitors to Victoria, welcome. I'm pleased now to introduce the Shrine Guard. The Shrine Guard has protected and provided ceremonial support to the Shrine since 1935. They wear a uniform, complete with emu plume, similar to that of the Australian Light Horse during the First World War. And that's a legacy, of course, of those first Shrine Guards, all of whom were veterans of that war. Shrine Guard, take post. We commence our service with the Australian National Anthem. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you. Please be seated. On this very day, 71 years ago, the men of the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment were preparing for battle. They were about to take part in Operation Commando, the United Nations operation to seize a strategically important group of hills on the Imjin River held by Chinese forces in Korea. On the 3rd of October 1951, the British launched the attack on the first target, known as Hill 355. 2 days later, it was the Australians' turn. The Australian objective was to seize Hill 317, also known as Maryang San. It was the highest of the hills and held by up to 2,000 well-equipped Chinese soldiers. With a heavy mist covering their approach, the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment climbed the ridges of the hill, intending to surprise the enemy from 2 sides. They were only metres away from the Chinese when the fog lifted and the attack began. Despite being outnumbered and tired from their tense march up the hill, the 320 men of the 3rd Battalion rushed the Chinese off the hill in a desperate, close-quarters battle. The 3rd Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment had to resist fierce counterattacks. But on the night of 6th of October, Maryang San was secure. The 3rd Battalion went on to assist the British in taking nearby Hill 217. By the time the battle was done, the battalion had been fighting for 5 days without rest. 20 men, 20 Australians, were killed during the battle and a further 104 wounded. But the Battle of Maryang San has become one of Australia's, and indeed the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment's, most famous victories in Korea. Today, Maryang San stands in the DMZ, the demilitarised zone between North and South Korea, and belongs to no one. Over 17,000 Australian personnel served in the Korean War during 3 years of bitter fighting. Over 1,200 were wounded and 29 were killed or taken prisoner. In addition, a further 321 were killed in action elsewhere. In total, there were some 2 million civilian casualties. The cost of such loss has been deep and long-lasting. Direct combat on the Korean Peninsula ceased on the 27th of July 1953, but the war between North and South Korea has never formally ended. Despite the great human cost, the Korean War, not surprisingly, is also known as the Forgotten War. Today we're fortunate to be joined by Samuel Webb. Sam Webb is a commander with the Fire Rescue Victoria. He stands here today with his children, Benjamin and Isla, and they represent the soldier Kevin George Harper. Kevin George Harper, known as George, was a member of the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment. He had joined the Australian Army at a young age, and happily, Sam tells me, he should be watching later on today. George served during the Korean War. He also deployed to Japan, both before and after that conflict, and therefore spent time with the Australian occupation forces in Japan. Pride in George's military service has become a family tradition. Sam remembers coming to Melbourne to watch George march, and in later years has marched beside his grandfather on Anzac Day here in Melbourne. It is a tradition George's great-grandchildren are already starting to follow. Today, Sam and his children will lay a wreath at the eternal flame. This wreath honours the 20 men killed in the Battle of Maryang San and all those that served alongside them. The wreath will now be laid at the eternal flame in a symbolic act of remembrance. Shortly, the ode will be recited followed by the sounding of the last post. The ode is the fourth verse of Lawrence Binyon's poem For the Fallen and is usually played on occasions of remembrance such as this. The last post is a traditional military bugle call that marked the end of the day, the end of the fighting. Now it is played to commemorate those killed in war. Please stand. And I encourage you to participate by repeating the phrases. Firstly, we will remember them. After the last post, there will be a period of silence ended by the words, lest we forget, which should again be repeated. The first bugle call, the rouse, will follow the ode. But for now, I ask Sam to step forward and recite the ode.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. In the concluding part of our service, the Shrine Guard will lower the flags while the bugle call retreat is sounded. Today, we fly the Australian national flag, the Victorian state flag, and the Korean veterans flag. Shrine Guard, take post. The flags will now be lowered. The Shrine of Remembrance belongs to all Victorians. It is a symbol of their love and enduring commitment, representing the suffering and loss of a nation and the sacrifice of those who have served in the face of conflict and carry its scars. Today, you have joined us in giving remembrance. On behalf of the Shrine Trustees, thank you. I would like to acknowledge and thank Sam Webb and Benjamin and Isla for being here today. I also thank our bugler, John Mansfield, piper, Peter Falconer, Shrine volunteer, Carolyn, Danny, Sue, and all those, including the Protective Service Guards, who have made this a success. The Shrine Guard and members of the ceremonial party are available following the service if you would like to meet them or take photographs. Many of you have been given a poppy. You are welcome to come forward at the end of the service to place your personal floral tribute with the wreath at the eternal flame. That concludes this afternoon's last post-service. Thank you for visiting Victoria's Shrine of Remembrance. I invite you to continue your peaceful reflection and wish you a good afternoon. Shrine Guard, fall out!